All right, I'd like to call this November 15th, 2012 Cookeville City Council meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Anderson, Councilman Woodford,
Present.
Mayor Swallows,
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps,
Here.
Councilman Albright, here, 4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Would everyone please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. Consider approval of agenda as presented. Do we have any additions, subtractions to the agenda?
There are no changes.
A motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right. Old business. Consider approval of minutes. Council meeting held on November 1st, 2012. Do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right. Item 3, hold a public hearing and consider on second and final reading ordinance 12-1121, amending the budget of the general fund of the city of Cookeville for the 2012-2013 fiscal year. Sponsor is Mr. Jim Shipley.
Oh, I am the sponsor, aren't I?
Yep.
This is the second reading of the ordinance that we have insurance proceeds that we received from a damaged police car and $3,000 to cover an error made by the Tennessee Rehab Center in their request for appropriation. And I would recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Shipley. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments from council? Seeing none, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, on new business, item 4, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance 12-1019, annexation and zoning of Bennett Road Extension area, and resolution 12-1010, adopting plan of services for same. Sponsors Mr. James Mills. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, Mayor, as you stated, this ordinance would annex and establish the zoning for certain properties which consist of approximately 1,362 acres or 2.13 square miles located west of the current corporate limits between I-40 to the south and U.S. Highway 70 to the north. It includes the area around the proposed location of the extension of Bennett Road from Interstate 40 to Highway 70. The Cane Creek Estates, Speck, and West Haven subdivisions are located within the area. Property owners in the proposed annexation area were notified by mail by the Planning Department prior to the public hearing held by the Planning Commission. They were also provided an information package on the proposed annexation. The area proposed for annexation is located entirely within the City of Cookeville urban growth boundary. Of course, the urban growth boundary was approved and adopted by Putnam County in the state of Tennessee in the year 2000 and was intended as the area in which the city was projected and expected to grow into over a 20-year period. Within the UGB, the city has the authority to annex by ordinance. The annexation area can generally be characterized as low-density residential, with some commercial and industrial uses located to the north along Highway 70 north. The area has a significant amount of undeveloped land located primarily between the railroad and Interstate 40. Topographically, the area can be described as level to gently rolling. There's also a FEMA-identified 100-year floodplain along Cane Creek, which is located along the eastern edge of the area. The area contains 289 parcels in their entirety and portions of 11 others, with the remainder of these 11 parcels already located within the city limits. Located on 226 of the 300 parcels are 243 residential housing units, of which approximately 239 are occupied. And based on this occupied housing, we estimate the population in the area at 538. We also have identified 28 non-residential land uses Most of these are located along Highway 70, and there are approximately 6.1 miles of streets in the area, most of which are in good condition with an asphalt surface. The area also includes 0.85 miles of U.S. Highway 70, and there's approximately 9/10 of a mile of Nashville and Eastern Railroad right-of-way within the area. With the exception of the area along Highway 70 North, which is already served by the City of Cookeville, water service in the proposed annexation area is currently provided by the Double Springs Utility District. The city's contract with the utility district includes provisions for the acquisition of annexation areas. The entire area is located within the service boundary of the City of Cookeville's Natural Gas Department. The Upper Cumberland Electric Membership Cooperative provides electrical service to the area and would continue to do so following annexation if it is annexed. And the area is located within the 5-mile service boundaries of 2 of our fire stations. Residents of the area proposed for annexation would receive numerous benefits as a result of annexation. These include police and fire protection provided by the city, a reduction of their ISO fire insurance rating from Class 6 or Class 9 to Class 2, which can result in significant savings on homeowners' insurance premiums. They would also receive a reduction of their water rates. For existing city customers, they would see a 30% reduction of their rate. For customers served by the utility district, they would see a reduction of about 50%. Gas rates for existing customers would be reduced by 30%. Property owners would also receive zoning protection, street lighting, brush and bulk item pickup, and weekly garbage pickup. Property owners currently paying for garbage pickup would save about $240 or more annually. We're required to review and consider for approval the plan of services, which is Resolution 12-10-10, and I'll go through that now. Police protection would be provided upon the effective date of annexation. Fire protection would also be provided upon the effective date of annexation. Water service rates for existing customers would be reduced to the inside city rate within 60 days after the effective date of annexation. Required improvements for the area served by the Double Springs Utility District would be completed within 5 years after the city acquires the service area. Sanitary sewer service will be provided to the unserved portions of the annexation area when economically feasible and based upon the same criteria, standards, and policies used to determine the expansion of sanitary sewer service in the unserved portions of the present corporate limits. Solid waste collection and disposal will begin within 60 days after the effective date of annexation. Street maintenance would begin upon the effective date of annexation. Inspection services, planning, and zoning would begin upon the effective date of annexation, and we will be considering the zoning for the area tonight also. The residents would have access to all our recreational facilities upon the effective date of annexation. Electrical service and street lighting, as I noted, the area would continue to be served by Upper Cumberland Electric. We do not have the authority to acquire this area, so it will continue to be served by the cooperative. We will provide street lighting, and it's anticipated that will be done within 1 year after the effective date of annexation. Natural gas customers would have their rate reduced to the city rate, inside city rate, within 60 days after the effective date of annexation. There is one area where a line would have to be extended, and that's Reeser Lane, and that would be extended along Reeser Lane based on customer demand and when economically feasible. So it is the plan of services. Of course, property owners, when they're annexed, would have to pay city property tax. The current city property tax rate is 90 cents for every $100 of assessed value. So, for example, a $150,000 home, the annual city property tax would be $337.50. Based on current tax appraisals, the average annual city property tax for a homeowner in the area would be $297.75. Assuming that the current timeline is followed for approval of this annexation, the annexation would not become effective until January, and as a result, this means the property owners would not be required to pay property tax until 2014. So they would receive, not be responsible for any tax for services in 2013. In a study completed by the Planning Department, we estimated the cost for the delivery of all services in this area at $10.9 million. The bulk of this cost is for the provision of sewer service, which is estimated at $7 million. The provision of sewer to this area is depicted in our master sewer plan with the Department of Water Quality Control. The 10.9 also includes an amount of $750,000 for the acquisition of the water service area from the utility district, and it includes $2.2 million or an option to spend $2.2 million to construct, equip, and man a fifth fire station. Based on the current population and the level of the development in the area, the study estimates that the annual revenue to the city from property and state share taxes to be $145,000. Okay, we'll talk about zoning. Zoning for the area would closely conform to the recommendations of the Cookeville 2030 plan as amended earlier this year. CI, commercial industrial mixed-use zoning, is recommended for an area north of the new interchange along the extension of Bennett Road and along portions of the railroad right-of-way. CL, local commercial zoning, is proposed for several properties along U.S. Highway 70 North, and RS20 single-family residential zoning is recommended for the remainder majority of the properties or the area. The proposed zoning reflects input that the Planning Commission received at their public meeting in September. Subsequent to the Planning Commission approval, the Planning Department did receive one request, a request for RD, single-family and duplex residential zoning for a portion of the Gall property located on Locust Grove Road. But the map before the council tonight does not reflect that. In summation, the proposed annexation, establishment of zoning, and the plan of services have been approved by the Planning Commission and are recommended by the Planning Department.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. You got to go over that again. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments from the council? Any questions, comments from the public? But I would like to first say that what we are meeting on tonight is the annexation and the plan of services that are included with the annexation. So if we could not get off on the fifth interchange or the actual road, that's a different time, different meeting. We will have the same deal, first reading, second reading, public meetings, all of that for those as well, because we don't know exactly where that's going yet. The only thing we know we're discussing tonight would be the actual annexation. So feel free, we will open the floor to discuss that, and if you would please keep it to 3 minutes because we do have a pretty heavy crowd. And if anyone would like to come up, we would like to hear from you. Just if you would also state your name, that would
Sure,
be
it's
helpful.
Mark Grimes. Just a quick question for Mr. Mills. In the Planning Commission, we had lobbied them to change our zoning from residential to commercial. It was approved, but I noticed you didn't mention that on your statement.
Yes, I did mention that. I mentioned that we did receive input, and it has been changed. It's depicted on the map. The map on the screen is not correct. It's the map that's up front here, and your entire piece of property is shown as local commercial.
Okay, sorry, you said Gall property. That's what threw me off. Thank you.
No,
So our map up there is not
that's not correct.
Not
The
correct,
one on the up front here is
okay.
correct.
So if everyone would, just look at this one.
Yeah, the map on the screen was what was originally presented to the Planning Commission, and the changes that were made included the Grimes property, placing it all within CL local commercial, and then areas on the north side of Highway 70 were also included as local commercial, and they're reflected on the map that's up front here.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mills. Thank you, Mr. Grimes, for pointing that out. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I do understand the purpose of this meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Some of you already know me. I am Patricia Dyer Grimes. And our family is trying to protect our fifth generation farm, which unfortunately is located near the intersection of Highway 70 and this proposed connector. We are opposed to forced annexation. I'm sure you're probably aware that Tennessee is one of only 4 states that allows for forced or involuntary annexation by way of an ordinance which, within their urban growth boundary. So, why are the elected members of this city council and their appointed officials chosen to annex the west side of Cookeville, Putnam County, without offering the people a say by way of a referendum? You, the city council, should put the people's interest above any special interest group and put this annexation to a referendum. Do the right thing and let the people's voices be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grimes. Anyone else?
I'm Monty Gall. I represent Junior and Betty. On the map, does your ordinance reflect the change? Will you reflect the change that James talked about from RS20 to RD?
Does our...
Will you, in your ordinance, you will, the future maps will show it as RD?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yeah.
What's before the council is what was approved by the planning commission. Monty expressed to me after planning commission approval that he had the thought that this section of their property would be better zoned as RD, and that's why I brought it up tonight. I believe the council would have the authority, if you so choose, to include the portion of the property that he's talking about as RD, but that's not what is before you. You have to take a particular action to do that.
It's 200 foot. It's a 200-foot strip.
It's a 200-foot strip that's between the CI zone through here. Right through there.
Steady that hand there, James.
Yeah, you're
do.
going to have to offer
See if you can go to that, Jake.
to the motion.
We'd have to offer an
Include
amendment
that.
to include that 200-foot strip.
Yeah.
And that will go the entire boundary of that side.
Go to Locust Grove Road, right?
Go from the railroad to the boundary of their southern boundary. There's a big oak tree there. If you don't make the curve, you're going to hit the tree. So that's how you can kind of tell it.
It's the change. Mr. Gall, you're wanting to change that from what to what? From residential?
They had proposed RS20. We were under the impression it was all going to be CI at the beginning, and then whenever the Planning Commission met, and I tried to bring it up that point, but the RD would fit better for us.
So you want it changed from CI to RD?
From RS20 to RD.
RS20 to RD.
RS20 to RD.
I guess Mr. Mayor, the question I have is, sorry, Mr. Gall, I don't want to interrupt you, but the question I have is, I mean, is it appropriate? Is it appropriate for us to do this at this time? Does this usually go through planning? I'm not. If it's fine to do, I'm okay with it. But usually the way this works is we here for planning goes over all the nuts and bolts of this and looks at this under a microscope, and they hand it over to us and give. I've not had the opportunity to look over this with a microscope. Hoping all the I's are dotted and the P's and Q's are in the right place.
The Planning Commission has reviewed and made a recommendation on the proposed zoning. So they have looked at this. This particular RD zoning proposal was not reviewed, not considered, but ultimately it's the council's decision. The decision, I guess, would be, is this a substantial change requiring it to go back to the Planning Commission? Well, this area is not zoned now. This is new zoning for the area. And it's up to the council to make the decision on the zoning.
Now, I did bring it up at the Planning Commission.
Okay.
I do not believe this would constitute a substantial change because it's such a small portion of the total annexation and it's not currently zoned. So I don't think it would constitute a substantial
It's still
change.
going to be single family. It'll just allow for 2 family dwellings.
Mr. Mills, that being such a small area, are we able to change that small of an area? It would be more of a spot zoning situation?
Pretty good chunk of change, area-wise, yeah.
It's 200 feet deep. Other thing to note on this, if the decision is to place it in RD, which is single and 2 family, there's no sewer out there now. So it would still have to meet the minimum requirement for development, which is 20,000 square feet, typically for sewer. So you're not going to get 5,000 square foot lots out there without sewer. So it's still going to be large lot development, but it would allow duplexes, as provided they could meet the requirements for a septic system. It would give him, he is correct, it would give them some flexibility. And it does, we back up why we didn't bring the CI all the way out to Locust Grove Road. Locust Grove Road is a residential area, and the Planning Commission and the Planning Department felt that by leaving at least a 200-foot strip, it would provide a buffer or a better buffer for the existing residential areas along Locust Grove. But looking from the Gall's perspective, and he's mentioned this, that who's going to want to build a single-family house adjacent to a potential industrial area? It'd be more likely as a duplex or a rental area, be more feasible for them, and I don't disagree with that.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead. We don't have Alma here. She's usually our parliamentarian, but I guess would it be appropriate at this point in time to make an amendment to or add to, how would we need to do this parliamentary?
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend.
What I would do is wait till the conclusion of the public hearing. Part of this public hearing is about the zoning. You may have other comments about zoning. And at the end, once you finish the public hearing, if you want to make changes from the recommendation from the Planning Commission, make them then.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Greg Stevenson, I have another zoning question related to the RS-20. Is that purely for residential moving forward? Is that what that zoning would be for?
Yeah, RS-20 is single-family residential, 20,000 square feet per lot.
Now, can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
So if this rating is already located as commercial, what would it be moving forward?
Any use that doesn't conform to whatever zoning's in place would be grandfathered in, would be classified as a legal non-conforming use, and could remain in perpetuity, can stay forever. It can also, and that runs with the land, so you could sell the property, the use runs with the land. Now, if it's discontinued, if it's stopped, by state law, it's 30 months. So if after 30 months, 2.5 years, it's not started back up or reinitiated, then it has to conform to the zoning code. So, for example, it'd have to go back to single-family residential. But as long as it remains in use and it's not discontinued for more than 30 months, it can always stay as its current use. It can also be changed to a use of the same classification. For example, if it's a retail use, then it could convert to another retail use.
Well, if it's business right now, do I need to do something?
No, it can stay
So it
business
stays-
forever.
No, you're grandfathered in.
You're grandfathered in.
You're good.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Danny Newton. I live over in Hillsdale Drive. And I object to this annexation. I think you ought to vote on it. And the reason is the number of people in this annexation, if it's 538 or whatever it is, the average square mile in Cookeville is over 900 people. And so you don't have, those 500 some people can't be expected to pay for all the 10 million and something they're planning on incurring. And so it's an income shift, it's a cost shift to the people who live in the rest of Cookeville. And I just think that it ought to be voted on. I think it ought to be a referendum. And I don't know, maybe that 10 million is not all going to come in one fell swoop. We don't know. It's a pig in a poke. But I know for a fact that 500 and however many people can't pay for an annexation when the average density is close to 1,000 a square mile.
Thank you, Mr. Newton.
Mr. Mayor, yes. Mr. Newton, I really appreciate your comment, but I would disagree with that statement. I just don't the burden. I think, and I really. It's really hard when misinformation gets out there because you find yourself defending it, and that really is not the way. I mean, I'm not an accountant, but that's really not the way it works. The burden of $10 million is not going to be solely placed upon 500 people. That burden.
No, wait a minute. It's going to be placed on everybody else in Cookeville. That's me. Because
Okay,
you don't have
all right.
according to Harold Gibson, anyway, you don't have enough income to justify a $10 million investment.
And Mr. Newton, I will point out, I can promise you 10.9 million is not what we're going to spend on this.
I know it's going to be way over that.
We'll agree to disagree on that one. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Ralph Bowden, questions concerning the bigger issue here. You mentioned before that this meeting is only on the ordinance to annex, first reading. Now, that has to go through how many readings before it is, is this it?
No, sir.
No.
We have a second reading.
Second reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that will come after the meeting to approve the Bennett Road extension?
No, sir. We're just meeting. This meeting and our next public meeting will be on the annexation only.
Okay, and then
annexation and zoning of that annexed.
And then
area.
what comes after that?
After that, we'll probably actually, Mr. Bowden, if you'll let me, I will ask Ms. Kiefer, Melinda Kiefer. She's been working through this for probably well over a year, so a long time. So she can probably speak to that a little bit better on a time frame issue, right?
Thank you, Mayor. As far as timeline, okay, if we're looking at kind of schedule of events, if you will, when you look at the Bennett Road extension, that process is very preliminary. We've been in good relations with the property owners and we've started our survey work, if you will, for road alignment. That's step one. Step two, there will have to be some geotechnical soil sampling for the road alignment as we go through would be our next step. And then thirdly, once there's actually a final road alignment design, that's when, as far as something we can actually present, that's when it will go through the same process that this does, with public meeting, with opinion, all of that. So this particular process, which started in the Planning Commission with public meetings, is working now through its final phases. As the Bennett Road Extension Project begins to move forward, it also will have the same process where you will hold public meeting and have opinion, and then at the end of that kind of thing, there'll be a final approval by the City Council of the plans. So, and that will have 2 readings. So does that help answer your question?
At what point could the public comment?
Well, you have an opportunity to voice your opinion throughout the whole process. We held our first meeting on the Bennett Road Extension public meeting like in April, and we met individually with the people who are potentially directly impacted by the road alignment even before that. So, I've said before, we live in a great country. Everybody has an opportunity to access the resources, to voice your opinion, and go from there. And this process that we're laying out is part of that. And I'll be happy to provide you with any other information of contact information for people who it's out of my purveyance to, or the councils for that matter, in some ways. I'd be glad to give you information to continue to follow those resources.
Ms. Kiefer, will you do me a favor and kind of walk through the past timeline of some of the meetings we've had, TDOT's had, when they started, how many public meetings we've had? So we're trying to get all the information out there
in relation
much as we
to
can.
the Bennett Road extension. Okay.
All of it, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. Well, obviously the annexation has had its own path, and I'll be happy to try to do that. But originally, just to give a brief summary, when we finally got to the point to where we were able to negotiate with TDOT and come up with a road that we felt like was much more fitting for the area that they were requesting be built originally. Then our first step was to meet with individual folks out in that area. We did that individually. A lot of you, obviously, we sat and visited with and tried to provide as much information as we can on a preliminary basis. Secondly, we had an informational meeting. We sat down out at the town center. We tried to provide maps to give information. Again, it wasn't a yes-no meeting. It was a here's the information we have meeting. We also met with the county commissioners trying to explain also here's where we are in this process. So those have been the opportunities along the way. Letters have been sent with that as well. And then on the annexation, I know that Mr. Mills sent letters out to everyone affected, and even, some question as to where should that annexation boundary be. Do you want to be in? Do you want to be out? Kind of thing. And I think public opinion has very much played into, as you saw tonight, their attempt to work in a way that helped everyone as much as it could.
Thank you, Ms. Kiefer. Thank you. Yes, sir.
That still doesn't quite address my concern. It seems to me that the annexation issue that we're dealing with tonight depends on the Bennett Road extension issue that we're dealing with down the road. And shouldn't the issues be flopped? I mean, if the Bennett Road is not approved at the various hearings and so on, well, then this whole business of the annexation becomes moot, does it not?
It would. Mr. Shipley, could you?
I don't really think it becomes moot, because if the interchange is built, at some point Bennett Road's going to have to be built. You can't expect Hawkins, Crawford Road, and Minelet Creek Road to carry that traffic.
Well,
That's a
let me speak on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
As I stated earlier, this area is within our urban growth boundary. It's an area we're expected and projected to grow into. So whether or not Bennett Road ever occurred, at some point in the future, we would be annexing this area. Now, it has occurred at this date and because of the planned extension of Bennett Road. All our projections indicate that the area of growth for Cookeville and Putnam County will be between Cookeville and Baxter. That's where the land's available, that's where the topography supports it, that's where the infrastructure supports it. So this is going to be the growth area. The process has been sped up some because of Bennett Road, but this area would be in the city limits at some point in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. All right. Anyone else?
Mayor, Council, I'm Brian Paddock. I'm attorney representing Cookeville Area Citizens Association. I'm sorry I got a little late to this start of this. Apparently you don't want to hear about the Northern Connector, but I would just call your attention to the fact that Mr. Finch and I have been over literally hundreds of pages of documents from both the Federal Highway Administration and TDOT. There is not a single document that indicates that TDOT ever asked the Highway Administration for approval of an interchange without a Northern Connector. And then in August of 2009, it divided the project between the Northern Connector and the interchange and told the city at some point after that, the connector is on you, not on us, even though they had previously done the design and budget work for that Northern Connector. So they shifted it to you a few years ago. The interchange justification study that the Federal Highway Administration approved, and I'll just cut to the chase, through years of this, and internal minutes from TDOT, everything else, they never asked Federal Highway Administration to do what you and the county repeatedly asked them to do, which was to approve an interchange that went connected to the south through the business park that you spent a lot of money on. And what Federal Highway Administration said was, well, if this thing's going to let people go to the north, we're concerned about the local roads. Tell us how that's going to work. And basically, the TDOT people said, well, here's what we think will happen. Eventually, there'll be a northern connection. And what the justification study that was submitted to Federal Highways and they approved said, it was assumed that if the northern connector is not constructed concurrently with the interchange, it would be constructed by the year 2018, 5 years after the assumed base year of the previous analysis. Therefore, they redid the traffic projections and actually reduced the amount of traffic that would be going north. The feds have approved an interchange for you that does not require the immediate construction. You have been told by TDOT that they believe that's what the feds want. There is not a single thing in the record. Emails, discussions, minutes of meetings of any kind. And I suggest you have your officials and your attorney, number one, will be having to make the documents available that we've gotten, and sit down with the Federal Highway Administration and say, what if we put this off for a few years? We don't have this money now. We don't see the need for it. You approved something that said that this might not get built for another 5 or 6 years. Why are we doing this now? I mean, legally, you're in the position where you don't have to do that. What you're doing is you're essentially bending over for TDOT and letting them tell you something that's quite frankly not true. It's not supported by the record, and I think if any of you spoke to a federal official and talked to them about what it says in the justification study, they would tell you no, that you do not have to build the connector right away. You've got to deal with the problem in your own time about what traffic will go to the north from that interchange.
Thank you, Mr. Paddock. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm Jim Grimes, and this is going to sound like a broken record. I did this at a meeting with the Planning Commission, but I'd like to ask again, how many here are in favor of annexation? Did we get a hand? One? How many is opposed? Someone tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, needless to say, the people do not want to be annexed. One other question, who would like to see a referendum where you could vote on this? Okay. When this thing started, we were told early on that it was running about 50-50, the people that opposed versus the one that were in favor of. We haven't seen this. This is what we have seen. And it just seems to me that the way to get to the bottom of all this is what you've been hearing tonight, a referendum. Let us vote on it. Let the people speak out. And I realize that this group here is a small portion of the 500 that's going to be affected. Of course, we know and you know that people don't turn out. I feel confident that if you had the 500 people sitting here, the percentage would be about the same. And, you know, our government is made up of the people, for the people, by the people. The people don't want this annexation. The people want to be able to vote on it. We want a referendum. We want to be able to call the shots. And so we're asking you people to do the right thing and represent us, not politicians, but represent we the people, and let us vote on this and do it the American way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Mr. Shipley, since they've asked, since the urban growth boundary has been put in place, how many times have we done a referendum on annexations?
We did one, which was required if you're trying to annex outside your urban growth boundary.
Right.
And I might point out that if annexations were done by referendum, Cookeville would be about the size it was in 1955. Because, I mean, people are not going to vote for annexation. And I understand your point, but they're just not going to.
46 other states, they have to have a referendum.
I don't know about that.
They can do it all over. They grow, they do it.
I don't know.
It's underhanded. And there's America. And there's counties in Tennessee that they don't do. East Tennessee, Missouri. So they can do it, we can do it. You know. So we're asking you all to represent us. People, we people.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Yes, sir.
I'm Dan Spickard, and one of the principals in Enon Auto Recycling, a salvage yard there on 70, and moved from Ohio in 2004, having some experience in business and as well in zoning. And I can tell you that I was pleasantly surprised by the reception that I've received on the part of the business people, or rather the state people, that I've had to deal with so far in my dealings as a business person here in Tennessee. It's been refreshing to be welcomed, as opposed to we're doing you a favor by allowing you to continue in business. And I was just wondering, one question that I had was, obviously it's different being in the county versus the city. Does the city have a pro-business posture that I can count on, not to get around rules, but to say that we're going to work with you in creating business and economic opportunity? That's one question that maybe some can answer, but one of the things that I don't think, as a business person who's a non-resident, I wouldn't even get to vote on my property if that were put to a vote. So we talk about representation. I don't think that I would have that opportunity, and maybe Mr. Mills or someone can address that. But as a property owner, because I'm not living there, I don't think I would even get a vote. So I would kind of be marginalized, and it would be strictly residents who would be, I guess, imposing their will on property owners who own property that are non-residents. So I'd just like to, make that statement and find out, can I expect the same reception in the city as I've received in the county?
Thank you, Mr. Spickard. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm not sure, since you are not a resident of the area, how much you've been involved with a lot of this, but from my perspective, and I won't speak for the entire council, but we have a pretty good working relationship. Pro-business, pro-growth, pro-jobs, that's the main reason we're doing all of this. We've got a business park that we've developed that we're actively recruiting and trying to bring more jobs. When we all ran for these positions, I know Councilman Woodford's mentioned it before, and that's what we heard. Jobs. We need jobs. We need help finding jobs. Whether it be manufacturing or whatever it is, we need jobs. And we feel like we're trying to do that. We really do. We feel like we're trying, with this annexation, with this interchange, with this additional road, support our pro-business park. And we're trying to do everything we can to provide some more jobs and maybe a better way of life for a lot of people in this area. It is unfortunate that, while doing that, it can be inconvenient to some people. I realize that, and I understand that. I do. But we have to, as a governing body, decide maybe what's best for the greater good. And so anyway, that's my perspective. That's one of the main reasons we're doing this. So yes, I do feel like we are pro-business, but not at all costs. I mean, we don't want to hurt the quality of life, but we are pro-business, and this is one of the reasons we're doing this right now. So if that answers your question, I'm not sure, but anybody else can speak to that if they'd like. But that was the resounding thing that we heard 2 years ago. And anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just to kind of rebuke what you were saying. The land that the business park is going to be located on was bought in 1998 by Sheridan Family Limited Partners out of Nashville. These people out of Nashville buy this land in the middle of nowhere. Were they prophetic, lucky, impeccable timing? A couple of years later, there's talk of a business park, and today here we are. So as far as being pro-business, I think it's pro-special interest. But the other thing is, everybody knows that government has never created any jobs. What the government actually does is creates an environment that's, good for business, but government does not create jobs. And centrally planned, giant business parks like this that are planned by politicians and bureaucrats, most of whom don't have business experience, is not the way to create jobs. We need to create an environment, low taxes, which if you look at your last financial statement, the city of Cookeville owes $75.1 million in long-term liabilities for both business and governmental activities. We had revenue of $106.4 million. We're quickly approaching 100% of total revenue. And debt-laden, high tax areas are where businesses are running from and not running to. And the other thing, just to recap this, if you actually look at the environmental assessment for this project, it's rated at $32.1 million. That's what's going to be spent. And if you look at CNBC, they put out a list every year of best states for business. Tennessee ranks 16th, mainly because we ranked number 2 in cost of living, which we all know it's cheap to live here. We ranked 4th in infrastructure, which means we've got roads. We ranked 42nd, I believe, in education. So if you're wanting to attract business, we need to concentrate on our areas that we're not doing well, like our education. That would bring in more businesses and give a tax base that would be a politician's dream. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
may I speak? Have the floor for a second. Mr. Grimes, thank you very much for your comments. I really do appreciate your passion that you have with this, and I wish I could say I understand, because I don't have a proposed road either going through or coming close by my house. Okay, so I wish I could say that, but I wouldn't wish that on myself. I wouldn't wish that on anybody else. However, here I sit. Here I sit at this chair with my other council members, being called upon to make this decision. Whether you want to call for a referendum, etc., the way it stands now, we are being called on to make this decision, and I can speak for myself that it's a very weighty decision, and when I say I appreciate hearing from you, I do appreciate hearing from you, because I don't take these decisions lightly. Now, one of the things that you just mentioned, I wanted to just, for a little bit of clarity, all these other council members were not involved in the process when this business park was done. I was on the county commission. I was very integrally involved in that process and supported it. And I really stuck my neck out, knowing that this period in time would come, that my neck would be sitting right here to get chopped. And here it is, and this is the bed, and this is what I made, and this is I plan to lay in it. I would like to say, you did make a statement, and I'd like to just, for correction purposes, you made some statements that were not necessarily inflammatory, but I think they were a little bit, let's just say, incorrect. You used words like special interests, bureaucrats, politicians, and government having nothing to do with the growth of business. Let me speak with growth of business. Since I've been on the city council, the partnerships that I see that the government makes with the private interests and with the public, it's amazing to see what that will do. So I disagree with you on that one. Okay, maybe does government need to be involved in business? I don't think so. I think that, but when we partner, I've seen some fantastic things, and I think my city council members have seen that happen too. Now, as far as I hate to say this, but I took us a little personal when you said bureaucrats and politicians did this. I put anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week over at the hospital a week, and then I come over to the county commission. I sit through committee sessions, study sessions where we just poured over that business park, poured over it, and I had to take time away from my family, all these things. And I'm not trying to martyr myself, but I represented just one person of many doing the same things. We all here we're not politicians. We are city council people that are doing our very best to try to represent this populace that we call home, that we call Cookeville. So I'd just like to make that correction, that I don't feel like I'm a bureaucrat or a politician. maybe I am. Maybe you think so, and that is certainly your opinion, and you're very well entitled to that. But it is very difficult for me to sit here and hear this, and then trying to reiterate what the mayor has said, trying to do the best that we can for this place that we call home. And I mentioned this to you specifically before, your family specifically, that whatever we can do in the best of our ability to help you guys through this painful process that you're going through. Because I'm going to vote for the annexation. I mean, you know that.
I know you all are. We're wasting our time.
Yeah. But I just want to let you know that whatever we can do to make this process when we do start the road process, because I believe that's probably your biggest most concern, that whatever we can do to make this as least painful as we possibly can. I want to assure you as a councilman that I'll work with our city manager and our community development, our economic development people to make sure that we get to do this as best as we possibly can. And I appreciate your time and effort and your passion in all this. So enough said. I'll be quiet.
I can just say one thing. We've asked repeatedly if we could share the road with the neighbor. Just we'll take half of it and we'll go away. We'll go home 80 feet. We'll go home. We'll be your biggest fan. And we've just been stonewalled with Mr. Shipley and or we get to run around, talk to T-Dot, and we talk to T-Dot. T-Dot says, there's nothing to do with it, talk to the city. And so we're just going back and forth. We're not unreasonable.
We're still exploring that. That's not been ruled out.
So,
and we will. We're still going to try to do that. We're exploring that now.
Yeah, by no means has that been decided.
Let me just say I don't make a whole lot of promises a lot of times because a lot of times I don't know all the facts because there's so many facts out there. But I can promise you as a councilman that this city management, as a councilman, that we initially we have where the buck stops here, folks. Okay, I will promise that we will do our very best to make sure that we work with you within the reasonable effort and due diligence to make sure that we can do as best as we can for you guys.
We can't ask for any more than that.
And I know we're not here to talk about the road, and I got on that, and that's my fault, Mr. Mayor. That's my bad.
I was just say, up to this point, we have not felt that at all.
Okay.
And we
thank you for your patience.
We've been lawyering up and tried everything. We just have not felt that at all. So if we could get any type of, we felt like we were getting give and take. We got some give and take from the Planning Commission. We appreciate that. We would be so much happier, and we'd get out of your hair and go away.
May I ask one question, James?
Yes.
Okay. You said you were exploring that.
Yes.
And I hope you are, but we've heard that from day one. The surveyors will be there Monday. Do they notice?
Yes.
Okay, how can we keep up with this to know?
Let Melinda's overseeing the project. Let her speak directly on it.
Mr. Grimes, when you all had the conversation with Mr. Mills about looking at that option, we immediately kept all of that on the table. As you all know, there's a 1,000-foot corridor that was identified, and all we have to do is stay in that 1,000-foot. Okay. As soon as we get the survey done, and we finally got final determination from TDOT, in the original IJS that Mr. Finch mentioned, they did the environmental review at that time, and we felt like it wasn't our responsibility because it's over 3 years old. Any environmental review that's been done that's 3 years old is no longer valid. You have to do an update. Okay, so this entire project, Fifth Interchange, all of it together, has to be re-evaluated based on the time frame of the previous one. Once that is done and we've got determination, TDOT will do that. We don't have to do it, which is great because they did the original one. They need to go out there and do the reevaluation. So as soon as we get that reevaluation, we'll have a better picture of what that alignment could or could not look like with an 80-foot shift here or there. So all of that's still open in the preliminary design discussions, if that helps.
Well, is Amber the one that will know about that?
No, Amber wouldn't know because she's the project manager for the Fifth Interchange.
Well, and again, I know we're taking time.
It's okay.
It seems to us that it's very fair to ask half of it on them, half of it on the Senate wouldn't.
Because our farm is very narrow. We're going to have anything left to build.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
If it was wide, we had a wider width of the property. Our property would actually go up in value and would be happy.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be more than happy. I'll be more than happy to continue conversations that we've had over the past. I'd be more than happy to do regular updates with any property owners at any time. Again, Amber is your go-to person on the Fifth Interchange, but please consider my door, my phone has always been to you all and continues to be open.
Follow-up we need is yes, we're going to skip 80 feet.
Yes, sir, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Let's just keep open communication with all of us as we move forward. take you up on that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. It was my fault. We kind
No,
of
that's
got on the road, and we are indeed talking about annexation.
Okay.
So my apologies,
We'd be
Mr.
the
Mayor.
happiest people in the county.
Yes, sir.
Yes, for those of you who don't know me, I think most of you up there do. My name is Jonathan Williams. I represent the 9th District on Putnam County Commission. Of course, the 9th District is the affected district here. So even though I personally don't have a dog in the hunt, I live outside the urban growth boundary. I do own a business in Cookeville, and I do pay business taxes for the city of Cookeville. So I feel like that, in addition to representing the folks, I should be here. I don't think there's anybody in this room, and I mean, no matter how for or against this project I don't think there's anybody in this room who is against progress and who doesn't want to see new jobs here, who doesn't want to see progress. And there will be some nice benefits. If this road is built, some folks will have really easy access to the interstate. It'll make it quicker for me and for some of these folks here. But the way in which it is handled, I think, matters a whole lot. Now, Larry, or Mr. Vice Mayor, I'm sorry, I was sitting in the audience. As a citizen, the night the county commission voted to go in halfers with the city and buy this business park. I believe it was 2008. And in that meeting, there was a pretty substantial presentation given by some folks from the chamber and some other folks who were in favor of this. At that meeting, there were folks in the audience who were trying to get the chairman's attention to speak against it, and they were not allowed to speak. Now, that's a long time ago, and there's a lot happened since then, but the point in all this is there are a lot of people who feel like from the very beginning, the business park, the road, now this annexation, that it's just being run roughshod over them. And I know that you all individually were not sitting in these positions, so and neither was I. So I don't want to cast personal aspersions on anyone. But the process has left some people feeling a little bit jaded. They feel like the city hasn't been honest with them in every step of the way. Mr. Paddock presented evidence that this road is not actually required by the Federal Highway Administration, but TDOT has only said that they think it'll be required. And of course, then the city has been acting based on TDOT's recommendation. And the fact is, you're going to have to borrow a lot of money to build a road that is not really required. And the point I'm getting at in all this is this. You don't have to do this right now. It may happen inevitably, but I think the process by which you do it is going to affect these folks' attitudes towards you and their trust of government. So I'm just asking, take some time. I think you're going to pass it tonight. Take some time and think about it. There's no rush. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams, thank you, and I'll respond to that because at the meeting you were talking about, it's needed again. I think clarity is so important, and and when you just kind of walk away after saying that we're kind of running roughshod, I think leaves it kind of on that one aspect. Let me just try to, for the sake of clarity, that meeting that you were talking about with the commissioners and city council, TDOT and other folks, that meeting was specifically for city for officials. To conduct business as needed, and there was there wasn't that the public was not invited. They were invited, but at that point in time, just like as a businessman, in order to get things done, you've just got to stay on task. Any person in there that had needed or wanted the opportunity to speak had every opportunity to after the meeting. But my job the way I understood it, my job at that meeting was I needed to represent my people well. I needed to sit there and listen to those TDOT people. I needed to sit there and listen to those TDOT people and listen to the facts, because the facts are where we're going to is what we're eventually going to base our decisions on. It's not on misinformation, not on just kind of trying to choosing who you choose to pick your facts from. Okay, I need to listen to those guys. I need to listen to our economic development people. I need to listen to people who look at the tax structure. I need to listen to my county commissioners. I need to listen to all those folks. And we did not have the time at that meeting to open up to a public forum, because when the public forum opens up, it's a wonderful process. But it's taken a while, and it's been a wonderful time. I've really enjoyed that. But we had work to do, and as elected official, and you know very well that you have work to do. And when you're sitting on that budget committee, were you on the budget committee?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry, but when you sit on that budget committee, you've got so much work to do, and it's so important for you to do that. if you don't stay at task, you're not representing your folks very well, because then it starts going off like I did just a minute ago, start talking about the road. I wasn't supposed to do that.
But,
Okay.
Well, and we might be a little bit.
But just make, and then the other thing too is when and you know this, and I know this. I learned this quite well when I was a commissioner, that when it comes time to trying to figure this out, you got to go to the facts, and you can't just choose that I'm going to get my facts just from right here. And that not to say that those facts are not legitimate and don't have veracity and don't hold their own, but you got to make sure, and you got to listen. You got to listen to what you're hearing over here from these other folks. And I know you know that. And I'm preaching the choir because where you sit, very important. And I appreciate you coming here representing your district. Now, one of the things as a commissioner, that when I served as commissioner, that's really hard to do, and that's your job, is it's your job to get that information out to your folks.
Well,
and that is hard to do because we don't have the communication process isn't nearly as good as on the commission as it was on the council. So you talked about how you feel like this is being run roughshod over some of the folks in your district. Well, let me challenge you to say that is part of what you were elected to do, is to make sure you get that out, you find those facts out, and you get that out to your constituents as best you can.
Well, and thank you. And I think maybe at the very outset of this, we might be talking about two different meetings. The meeting I was referring to wasn't a TDOT meeting. It was the county commission meeting in which the county voted to issue the bonds, $7.2 million, and then the city also voted for $7.2 million. So that was the meeting I was referring to, where there were some folks who were speaking clearly in favor of the business park, and the anti-business park side wasn't allowed to be presented. And I think it's important as elected officials to be able to hear both sides of it. And like I said, from that moment all the way down the line, it's just kind of an air of inevitability. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And at several points along the way, there have been folks who've tried to stand up and say, now, wait a minute, there's another side to consider. But they've not really been given the chance to air their concerns in this environment. Now, there have been things set up where they could go table to table and one person or another. But to be able to air them publicly, that chance hasn't been given that much. And so finally now, I think that's probably why you're seeing so much pent-up frustration from some folks, because this is really the first real chance in a public way in front of everybody that some of these concerns can be aired. Now, I know that there have been meetings here and there, planning meetings and so forth. Sometimes they're during the day, not everybody can attend. But I don't want to get too far off topic. This is about the annexation. I just want you to consider there are two sides. Evidence has been presented that the very cause of this annexation is not actually a federal requirement. I think maybe you should take a look at that, make sure his evidence is good. And then if you need to proceed in a couple of months, then go for it. Proceed a year from now, go for it. Or if you just want to put it on a referendum, just let the people have their say. These are future voters, too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, anyone else? And again, we are just talking about the annexation.
Well, I think we're taking our time and being fair.
Yeah,
and respectful.
I would too.
We're trying to be very transparent on this. We're going slow on this. Open forum like this, we hear your questions. Again, it's tough because even though this is a political office I hold as a city councilman, this isn't a career. I'm a neighbor. I'm somebody that lives here. We try to make as good of decisions as the information is in front of us for the whole benefit, for the general good of the community. Again, this is in the urban growth plan. This is something, the annexation that was going to come, whether it's in 2013 or 2018, it was going to come. We're trying to be as open and as fair and as respectful as we can to the people involved in this area.
Vice Mayor.
Councilman Woodford, how many? You are on the planning committee,
right?
How many times would you say that you have met, both officially and unofficially, over this annexation that we're here? Just, I know it's a bunch, but ballpark.
Over 10, probably less than 20.
Yeah. Between 10 and 20 meetings that you've had specifically on this, and at those meetings, the opportunity for public input, has that been?
Maybe not all of them, but I would say a good portion, a half of them, that I've attended, that people were able to speak. The last planning commission, the Grimes family was there, and right.
Good for you.
We're trying.
Yeah, yeah.
Good for you. Thank you.
What? You got? We have some ribbons, I think.
Yeah, we got a gold star for you, man.
But yeah, I will reiterate. I do feel like we've had a lot of public meetings, and we're going to continue to do that. And we're open completely. City Hall's wide open. We're open. Let's set more appointments and meetings if we need to, and let's set up something where we can continue to stay in touch every few weeks if we need.
And one of the things, and Commissioner Williams really brings us up, and one of the things now we, as a council, we have not been as forthright as communicating with the county commission. I mean, I think that you had expressed that back at the meeting that I was talking about. We got our meetings mixed up, and we have not done that nearly as well as we need to. And we will do better. We will do better. And I think you alluded to that as a commissioner. For you to let your constituents know, you need to be hearing from all parties. And if the city on our part have either been reluctant, either by omission or commission, then we need to fix that. And I appreciate you bringing that to light for us. We'll do better.
And I do want to point out that we do have a good relationship with Mr. Williams and the county. So if for some reason you want to be heard from somebody differently, of course you can go through him as well, and he can talk to us as well, and you can talk to us. But we do work together. So wanted to point that out, that if you don't get us, you can go through Mr. Williams. Mr. Blair was here earlier. Whoever else you need to. So anyone else? All right, so we have a motion.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. And it would be the motion would be motion to amend, which would be to on the property in particular that Mr. Goff spoke about, to change from RS20 to RD. Is that correct, Mr. Mills?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Goff, is that correct,
Yes,
Monty? Is that correct?
Yes.
I'd like to make that motion to amend.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We have a vote on the amendment. All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. All right. One thing I did want to point out, because I realize a lot of people may get up and leave after this, and I want to point this out. Councilman Anderson, she cannot be here tonight. She wanted us to make sure everyone was aware of that. She wasn't just skipping out. She cannot be here tonight for a family illness. She would like to be here and would like to be involved, but she cannot. So I wanted to point that out before anybody got up and left, so we had a chance, so everybody knew. All right, now we have a motion and a second.
On the motion as amended.
Yeah, vote on the motion as amended.
Original motion as amended.
All right, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5, consider resolution 12-1111, authorizing a proposal with TDOT for federal and state project interchange at Mine Lick Creek Road and I-40. Sponsors Mr. Jim Shipley.
Mayor and Council, this is authorizes the mayor to sign, basically, it's a contract, it's an agreement with TDOT about the 5th interchange and what our responsibilities will be and what TDOT's will be. And we do have some property that the city and county owns, and the county will have to pass this too, that TDOT needs it for a ramp or some of the right-of-way for the interchange, that we will donate that to them. The only question, it's all pretty germane, the only question we have is who's responsible for moving any utilities, and we will have to work that out before we'll ask the mayor to sign it.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shipley. We have a motion.
So moved.
Approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
And I'm going to go off key real quick, Mr. Grimes, before any of you guys leave. I just wanted to point out, you're never wasting your time talking to us, okay? You're never wasting your time. I don't want you to feel that way. That bothers me. You're never wasting your time. And if the public ever becomes disinterested in what's going on, then we probably all need to move, I would say, because then we're all in trouble. So we love the fact that you're interested in your passion, and you're never wasting your time with us, okay?
Just something to say, we personally haven't spoke with you. We've spoken with Mr. Walker. He's been very helpful. I can't say the same for Mr. Ship and Mr. Mills. We just gotten, we're going to bulldoze, we're going straight forward. So we're just looking for anything we can get. We know you got the power of eminent domain, you can condemn what you want. We're just looking for any slice of,
Yeah, we know this is going to impact you directly. And we're going to try to, the best we can, to not disrupt your life completely.
Well, and like I said, our main problem is our farm is so narrow that once the road goes through and there's no access, that to put a road in, the land is worth down.
Okay.
So that's why we're really pushing to scoot it, because the land would actually be worth a lot more money, and we could go away and leave it.
All we need
We're going to work on that.
All we need here is 80 feet.
We're going to work with you. We're going to work with you on this, okay? So I want to get you before you left.
If we've said anything offended, sorry.
No, no offense taken. This is a business of government that goes on, and I do not take offense by that.
To be very honest, we're not.
Well,
in a nutshell,
the pond I fished with my grandpa and stuff is going to be bulldozed, so we've got emotional attachment.
Right.
If the ADV would say for spring, which we use for garden, and anyway, but
Thank you
very
it's
much.
personal, we know that.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, sorry for that sidebar. I wanted to catch them before they left. Item 6, consider awarding bid for SAN device, computer storage area network, Codes Computer Operations Department. Sponsors, Mr. Jeff Littrell.
Mayor and City Council, we advertised and received bids for a storage area network. I'd like to point out the low bid did come in a little bit higher than what we anticipated, but we saved money in other areas. With that in mind, I'd like to recommend approval of Dell Computer Corporation as the lowest bidder meeting specifications.
Thank you, Mr. Littrell. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions from the council? All right, seeing none, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Littrell. Item 7, consider rescinding action on September 6, 2012 for the purchase of 2 snowplows and award low bid of 10/31/2012 bid opening for 2 snowplows. Sponsors, Public Works Department. Mr. Greg Brown.
Mayor and Council, I'd like to request the action on September 6 be rescinded. Those snowplows were on state bid. The price did not include installation. We had anticipated the regular installation price from the manufacturer, which is not near as what they were asking for. We felt was excessive. So after negotiating with the manufacturer for about a month, we decided we would just rebid it with the installation included in the bid. The low bid from CMI Equipment, including installation, was $7,880 apiece for a total of $15,760. This is a budgeted item, and it is below the budget, and I would request approval for both of those items.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And I have here, according to James Mills, it's going to be a pretty bad winter. Do you have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions, comments?
No.
All right, I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Item 8, consider awarding bid for 1 compact sport utility vehicle. Sponsor, Mr. Greg Brown, for Public Works Department.
Mayor and Council, we recently opened bids on a compact SUV. Dodge of Columbia was the low bidder of $19,964 for a 2013 Jeep Patriot. This is a budgeted item, and it is under the budget, and I would recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Item 9, consider awarding bid for luminaries. Sponsors, Mr. Tony Peak from the Electric Department.
Mayor and Council, we've opened bids for some 1,000-watt metal halide lights, 36 of those. Recommend Stuart C. Irby as the low bidder meeting specifications. Might point out how competitive the bid was.
Looks very
41 cents per light difference. And recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Peak. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I'll vote.
Thank you.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, this is a portion of our meeting where we open the floor. again to hear from citizens and/or delegations. If anybody has anything to say, please feel free to come forward. If you could keep it 3 minutes, that would be greatly appreciated. If you do come forward, just state your name. All right.
Move we adjourn.
Anything from the council?
Santa's workshop this weekend.
This coming weekend, right. Anything else? All right. This meeting's adjourned.